The tension crackled in the air like a storm about to break. Words flew like daggers, sharp, calculated, meant to wound. One accusation led to another, a chain reaction of emotional explosions, each more personal than the last. The past was dug up, old wounds ripped open, and trust crumbled in real time. It wasn't just a fight. It was a psychological drama unfolding in front of everyone, exposing raw, unfiltered emotions. Eyes darted across the room, searching for allies, but there were none. In that moment, it was every person for themselves.
Hello, I'm the storyteller of the channel, and I would like to ask for a second of your time to subscribe, activate the notification bell, and like the video so that YouTube can take our story to more people who are passionate about stories like this. Thank you, and without further ado, let's continue with our story.
The weight of social struggles pressed down like an invisible force, making every breath feel heavier. Fear mixed with fury, and voices rose, each one fighting to be heard over the other. No one wanted to back down. No one could back down. It was too late for that. A slam of a fist on the table sent shockwaves through the group. Gasps echoed, and for a split second, silence filled the room, amplifying the intensity of the confrontation. Someone's voice cracked as they hurled their final words, filled with resentment and unspoken pain. The emotional story unfolding was no longer just words. It was a battle of wills, pride, and bottled-up frustration. But then, a shift. Eyes met across the room, realization dawning that this wasn't just a war of words anymore. Lines had been crossed. Regret flickered behind anger, but no one was ready to admit it. The weight of what had just been said lingered in the air, impossible to take back. And yet, the fight wasn't over. Not even close. A phone was lifted. A red dot blinked in the corner of the screen. Someone was recording, and that changed everything. The camera lens caught everything. The tension, the anger, the moment where words turned into something more dangerous. The shaky frame zoomed in on furrowed brows, clenched fists, the sharp inhale of someone realizing they had just said too much. The video wasn't just a recording, it was power. And in the wrong hands, it could destroy lives. Psychological drama had just found a new weapon. Whispers spread like wildfire. Did you see who's filming? What are they going to do with it? Fear wrapped itself around the room, invisible but suffocating. Social struggles were no longer just about who had the loudest voice. They were about control, manipulation, and who held the receipts. The recorded truth wasn't always the truth. A simple edit, a missing context, and suddenly, an emotional story could turn into a scandal. One message, one upload. That was all it would take to turn private pain into public humiliation. And the worst part? No one knew who was truly safe. Were they recording for protection? For blackmail? For revenge? No one could tell. A smirk from across the room sent shivers down spines. Someone wanted this chaos. Someone was playing a dangerous game. The pressure mounted, squeezing the air out of the conversation. Eyes flicked to screens, notifications popping up, fingers hesitating over the send button. The power to ruin someone was right there, just one tap away. But was it worth it? Could they really cross that line? The moral high ground felt like quicksand. In this war of exposure, no one was innocent. Then a sound, the fire alarm, loud, piercing, and suddenly the videos didn't matter. Panic replaced paranoia. The game had changed. Now, it wasn't about secrets. It was about survival. The deafening alarm wasn't just a warning, it was a trigger. Hearts pounded, not just from the fear of fire, but from the weight of everything left unsaid. One character, shoulders tense, eyes darting, felt the walls closing in. It wasn't just the noise, it was the pressure, the suffocating feeling of being trapped, not just in a burning building, but in their own mind. This wasn't just panic. This was something deeper, psychological drama at its peak. They had spent days, weeks, feeling the weight of social struggles. Being watched, being judged, every move scrutinized, every mistake amplified. And now, with the fire alarm screaming overhead, the fear wasn't just about flames. It was about exposure, about breaking down in front of people who wouldn't understand, about being seen as weak, about losing control. The emotional story unfolding inside their head was a battle no one could see. A war between running and freezing, between screaming and staying silent. Their breath hitched, the world closing in, and suddenly, they weren't in a school anymore. They were back in every moment they had ever felt powerless, every time they had been pushed too far. The fire alarm blurred into background noise. They were drowning. A voice cut through the chaos, sharp, urgent, pulling them back. "We have to go." A hand gripped their wrist, grounding them for just a second. Their body moved on instinct, but their minds still lagged behind. The pressure wasn't gone. It was just buried, waiting for the next trigger, the next moment of isolation. But right now, there was no time to process, no time to breathe. Smoke. The air shifted. The panic around them turned real. And just like that, the fear of their own mind was replaced by something worse, an actual, undeniable threat. The fire wasn't just an alarm anymore. It was here. The moment the smoke curled into the air, reality snapped into focus. The fire wasn't just a threat. It was a force of destruction, hungry and merciless. Students shoved past each other, their voices swallowed by the wailing alarm. Desks toppled, chairs screeched against the floor, and panic spread like an unstoppable wave. The psychological drama that had played out in whispers and accusations was now overshadowed by something far worse: survival. The thick haze blurred faces, turning friends into faceless shadows, fear gripping every breath. Some ran without thinking, driven purely by instinct. Others hesitated, searching for anyone they knew. Social struggles didn't matter now. Popular, outcast, loner, athlete, it didn't make a difference when smoke was filling your lungs. The fire had no favorites, no mercy. And yet, some still hesitated, frozen by indecision, trapped between doors that no longer felt like exits. Screams echoed as the ceiling groaned, embers raining down like burning confetti. The emotional story that had played out through arguments and threats now took on a different form. Tears streamed down faces, but this time, they weren't from anger. They were from terror. The walls that once held secrets now held something far more dangerous. Fire that consumed without question, without pause. A crash. A section of the ceiling gave way, sending sparks through the air. The heat clawed at their skin, their lungs begging for clean air that no longer existed. Someone reached for the door, but the handle was scorching. Trapped. That realization hit harder than any argument ever could. The fire was more than an enemy. It was an executioner, and it was closing in. In the chaos, a new instinct kicked in. They had to find another way out. There was no time for second-guessing, no time for regret. The only choice now was to move or to burn. The walls felt smaller, the heat pressing in from every direction. Smoke curled around them, thick and unforgiving, stealing the air from their lungs. Every breath was a battle, every step a gamble. The hallway stretched endlessly, filled with frantic figures pushing, shoving, desperate to reach an exit. Fear had no hierarchy here. Everyone was equal in their desperation to survive. The psychological drama of moments before was nothing compared to this primal need to escape. A figure stumbled, coughing violently, their body betraying them at the worst possible moment. Someone reached out, gripping their arm, pulling them forward. Not now. Not like this. There was no time to think about old grudges, about who had said what. This wasn't about social struggles anymore. This was about getting out alive. And yet, with every second, the fire grew bolder, its flames licking at their heels, daring them to slow down. The emergency exit, just a few feet away. But fate wasn't that kind. The door wouldn't budge. Locked. A cruel twist in an already merciless moment. A frustrated scream cut through the chaos, fists pounding against the metal. Trapped. The emotional story unfolding in real time was one of helplessness, of knowing that survival was slipping through their fingers. But giving up wasn't an option. It never had been. A loud crash, a window shattering. Hope. Fresh air, a way out. They didn't hesitate. Hands shielded faces. Legs scrambled over desks. bodies pushed toward salvation. The outside world was so close, yet so far. One last push, one last chance. The fire roared behind them, hungry and relentless, a final warning that there was no turning back. And then freedom, cold air, open space, the night sky stretching infinitely above them. They made it, but even as they gasped for breath, even as their bodies trembled from exhaustion, one thought burned brighter than the fire they had just escaped. Someone had started this, and someone was going to pay. The fire was out, but the real flames were just beginning to spread. Screens lit up with videos taken in the chaos, some shaky, some too perfectly framed, all telling different versions of the same nightmare. Footage of students screaming, running, pushing through the smoke. A slow-motion clip of the ceiling collapsing, sparks flying. And then, the one video that no one expected. A blurred figure near the origin of the fire, captured in the background of someone's desperate escape. The psychological drama had just taken a new turn. Comments flooded in, theories spread like wildfire. Who is that? Looks suspicious. Did someone do this on purpose? Social struggles were no longer confined to whispered rumors in school hallways. This was a public trial, playing out in real time. Likes, shares, reposts, accusations. Someone was guilty. People just had to figure out who. The emotional story had a new villain, and it didn't matter if they were innocent. The internet had already made up its mind. Screens became weapons. Screenshots of old messages, past arguments, anything that could fit the narrative. Faces that had been safe in the shadows were now front and center, their names trending for all the wrong reasons. A single caption could twist reality. A well-edited clip could make someone guilty before they even had a chance to speak. Truth didn't matter, perception did. And perception was controlled by whoever held the most attention. One student, eyes wide, scrolled through the chaos, heart pounding. Their face was in one of the videos. Their name was being mentioned. They weren't guilty, but did it even matter? Once social media decided someone was to blame, there was no undoing it. No escape. A sickening weight settled in their chest. The fire was over, but the real battle had just begun. Then, a notification. A private message. Short. Direct. I know the truth. We need to talk. The message replayed in their mind, over and over, like an echo they couldn't escape. I know the truth. But whose truth? Who could they trust when trust had already been shattered? Their fingers hovered over the screen, uncertainty twisting their gut. The fire was gone, but the flames of betrayal burned just as fiercely. Psychological drama wasn't just something that happened in stories. It was real, tangible, pressing down on their chest with every new notification. They had believed once that loyalty meant something, that friendships could withstand pressure. But as the posts kept rolling in, exposing things only a friend could have known, it became painfully clear someone had turned against them. Social struggles weren't just about who was popular or who wasn't. Sometimes, the worst betrayals came from the people closest to you. And when that betrayal was public, broadcasted for the world to see, it cut even deeper. A sinking feeling settled in. They scrolled through their messages, searching for answers, only to find silence where there should have been support. The emotional story unfolding before them was one of isolation, of realizing that when things got messy, people would rather point fingers than stand beside you. Maybe they were never really friends to begin with. Maybe trust was just an illusion. But anger was easier than sadness. The pain of betrayal turned into something else, determination. If someone wanted to turn them into the villain, they wouldn't just sit back and take it. They would find out who had started this, who had spread the lies, and they wouldn't stop until the truth came out. A new message appeared. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a challenge. Meet me. I'll tell you everything. The decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Fear and doubt still lingered, but they weren't going to be a victim anymore. They had spent too long letting things happen to them, watching as their life got twisted into a story they had no control over. Not anymore. The psychological drama wasn't just something they were trapped in. It was something they were ready to fight against. If someone thought they could manipulate the truth and get away with it, they were about to learn otherwise. The meeting place was quiet, too quiet, like the calm before a storm. A figure waited, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Every step closer felt like a step towards something irreversible. There was no turning back. Social struggles had taught them that power wasn't always in numbers. Sometimes it was in standing alone, refusing to be broken. The weight of betrayal still sat heavy on their shoulders, but now it fueled them. I didn't want you to find out this way. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The emotional story unfolding wasn't about revenge. It was about reckoning. They weren't here to beg for answers. They were here to take them. The pieces of the puzzle had been scattered for too long, but now they were starting to fit together. And what they saw wasn't just a betrayal. It was something bigger, a game that had been played long before the fire ever started. For the first time in weeks, clarity cut through the confusion. They weren't crazy. They weren't paranoid. This wasn't just a series of unfortunate events. It was planned. And now, they had proof. The truth wasn't just something to be uncovered. It was something to be used. A deep breath. A final look at the person who had started it all. This isn't over. And for the first time, those words weren't spoken out of fear. They were a promise.